I can't believe we're sitting here at the end of this, an impeachment inquiry in the House of Representatives, and I look at how all of this started. Started with a phone call, a congratulatory phone call between two presidents. And the very next day, someone contacted someone, and a week later, someone walked into the office of Chairman Schiff. And that person walked out a week later, a whistleblower, went to the Inspector General and filed a complaint where they falsely claimed that President Trump had made a demand of President Zelensky. They made a false statement in writing, and then they made a false statement verbally in the course of what should have been an investigation. We sit here today about to vote on impeaching a president where neither the House Judiciary Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, or any House committee where the Democrats are in charge has asked a single question of a single witness about how this started. Because you go back to that phone call, and the two people that were on it, the only two people that know not just what they said, but what they meant when they said it. And they both said it was a great call. So first, let me say I'm sorry. Let me say I'm sorry to the president of Ukraine. I'm sorry that as a result of all of this, you've been labeled a pathological liar by my Democratic colleagues. And I'm sorry that they pretend to care about the Ukraine, but they've just made it incredibly hard and more difficult for your country ever to get military assistance. I'm also sorry to the other person that was on that call who knew what he said when he meant it, President Trump. I'm sorry, President Trump, that you've tried to keep every promise. You've given us a great economy, and you did it against incredible headwinds where you were falsely accused of treason. You were accused of being a Russian agent by the folks in this room. And when that failed, we sit here today because now they're framing you because you said, I'd like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot. My last apology is to the American people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you've had to view this spectacle. I'm sorry to the 63 million of you that are so deplorable that as a result of this, you're being told your votes don't count. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Mr. Ratcliffe.
Thank the chair. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5 of the Constitution gives the House of Representatives the sole power of impeachment. The Constitution authorizes impeachment only on the basis of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. That's the express criteria. Those are the only constitutional grounds we have to act upon. Today we are marking up two articles of impeachment, abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Nowhere does the Constitution mention either one. Neither meets the written criteria set forth by the founders. Neither one has ever been sustained as the basis for impeachment, which explains why I had two members of Congress, one Republican and one Democrat, approach me on the floor yesterday to ask me exactly what obstruction of Congress means. They asked because they'd never heard of it before. We are marking up articles of impeachment for offenses that aren't crimes that some members of Congress have never heard of before, much less know what it means. The Democrats keep repeating over and over again, the president is not above the law. I've said it before, the president is not above the law, but he damn sure shouldn't be below it either. I've said it before because Democrats have tried this before. During the Mueller hearing, Democrats said repeatedly, emphatically, unequivocally that Donald Trump must be impeached for obstruction of justice. That was until they heard the special counsel admit to me that his obstruction of justice analysis was done under a one-of-a-kind never before used by the Department of Justice legal standard that inverted a presumption of innocence to a presumption of guilt. Now the Democrats are taking it one step further. Instead of creating legal standards out of thin air, they're creating impeachable offenses out of thin air. Whatever happened to quid pro quo, extortion, and bribery? The Democrats have been telling us it was clear. The facts were undisputed. The evidence was overwhelming, except it wasn't any of those things, and now it's all gone. Instead, they've reached in to the grab bag for a nebulous abuse of power accusation that legal scholars admit is not a crime. And now Democrats say the president obstructed Congress in its investigation into an alleged quid pro quo extortion bribery scheme that they now have to concede never existed in the first place. Gee, where have I heard that before? I remember. It was when my same colleagues across the aisle first falsely accused the president of collusion and conspiracy with Russia. And when that fell apart, they accused him of obstructing justice into their investigation of false conspiracy and collusion allegations. Every time Democrats get caught trying to frame this president with some crime he didn't commit, they follow up by accusing him of obstructing their efforts to frame him for the things that he never did in the first place. I'd like to say you can't make this stuff up, but it is all made up. I got to concede, though, to my colleagues, y'all move fast. The day after we watched the Russian conspiracy and obstruction of justice claims from the special counsel go down like the Hindenburg, the next frame job started with a phone call where the only two people on the call both said it was a great call and none of the things that the Democrats alleged happened. But I'll admit, this time, it's hard to blame some of my colleagues on this committee for doing too much this time around. I concede that because the once respected House Judiciary Committee with jurisdiction over the Constitution and impeachment was humiliatingly excluded until the bitter end from participating at all in matters involving the Constitution and impeachment. 1 week. History will reflect that the House Judiciary Committee's involvement in the impeachment of President Donald J. Trump started with a hearing on Wednesday, December 4th, and ended with a markup that started 7 days later on Wednesday, December 11th. How does that sound for fairness? How does that sound for due process? The founders warned and feared that today might come. Alexander Hamilton said the greatest danger of impeachment would be depriving a president of due process. The greatest danger, Hamilton said, would be if impeachment was used politically by a party that had the most votes in the House, instead of being used on the basis of guilt or innocence for specified crimes under the Constitution. And today, the Committee of Jurisdiction, after only 1 week, is marking up a bill to impeach a president for crimes that aren't specified under the Constitution by the party that has the most votes in the House and pledged to impeach him from the first day of his presidency. Today's Democrats are the founders' worst nightmare come true. Right now, I imagine most Americans are thinking, if only we could impeach them. To those Americans, I say, you can.
Gentleman's time has
next
expired.
November.